is
So
good.
it feels like what they did in Andor, which they did not do in the other shows, is this: trust the audience. Don't insult the
Yep.
audience's intellect. Trust them that you can tell them a complex, multi-layered story, even if it's a slow burn,
Yep.
because they will stick with it and they will follow it if you give them quality.
And you
And
can
that's what
have
they did.
something, that doesn't pay off
Yeah.
until 7 or 8 episodes later, and the
Right.
audience will remember. You don't
Yeah.
have to spoon feed it to them. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Welcome to Geeked and Jack. This is your host, Gonzo Herrera. And with me, I've got Larry, the mastermind from and co-host of Dork Layer podcast, as well as a all-around nerd authority, action figure enthusiast, collector, knowledgeable source of all nerdy things.
All things nerddom.
All things nerddom. I love that. So hey man, how have you been doing? Let's start with the basics.
Um,
You're
Good.
12
Everything's
weeks,
good.
12 weeks out of
Yeah.
prep. Let's talk
Yeah.
about that a little bit.
Yeah. My wife and I are both in prep right now. We are
Oh,
both
that's right. Your wife competes.
Yeah,
That's right.
so we're doing the weekend in Pittsburgh. It's the last weekend in August. She's doing the North American, and then I'm doing the Masters Pro World Classic Physique. I'll be doing the over 45 class. I'm 49, so I'm gonna
Nice.
try to get my body to hold on one more year so I can do the over 50. See how that works. But and then she's doing figure and physique, and she is in the over 55 class. Now, last year
Nice.
she placed top 3 in figure. It's a big class too. They had like 17 girls in our class. It was a big
Oh,
class.
wow.
And then she was top 5 in physique. And I'm gonna tell you what, man, like normally when we prep, I'm ready so much faster than she is. And my prep's going like it normally does. Like my body's pretty predictable. Soon as I started my diet at 16 weeks out. We started her at 20 just in case
Right.
we need the extra time.
Right.
Dude, within 4 weeks, like, all we did was we cut out our junk food meals. We made sure the regulated a minimum 10,000 steps a day. And
Nice.
she gets
Okay.
that most of the time anyway. She usually averages over that, but there'd be some 6,000 days and whatever. But I just, okay, if you average over, that's fine. But I want a minimum of 10,000 every single day. And that was really the only changes we made. And her body is like, we're 12 weeks out. I could put her on stage in 4 weeks, easy.
Wow.
I mean, I say
Wow.
easy, like it would suck like the last 4 weeks always do, but she is in shape so much sooner. And I made a real effort. We made an effort this off season for her to do it more like my off season where everything's more regulated, but I pushed her food harder. She ate more calories this off season and she trained around some injuries. When you get to be our age, there's always something hurts.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. That's true.
She trained around a lot of injuries, and even with that, like, I've seen improvements in her upper back, her legs, just all around, and then, like I said, her condition is coming in so fast. I'm thrilled to death. Like, every day, and that's the benefit of me doing her program. When she worked the first couple years she competed, she worked with a coach. And then last year she said to me, she said, "Look, I'm not doing this crap again unless you coach me." She said, "Because you know how my body works. You say what needs to be done before anyone else says it. If someone makes a mistake, you say, 'I wouldn't have done that. I done this,' and you're right." She said, "You just take it or I'm not doing it anymore." I was like, "Okay." So starting last year, I took that over. She looked her best last year. She's going to look even better this year. And I think the benefit is I get to see her every single day. Like, we get up first thing in the morning. We both get up. She gets up a little bit before I do. I get up around 5:30, do our meal prep, go downstairs, and there's the little like the mud room where you come in from the garage where the pantry is. It's the lighting there is perfect. So she just walks over, disrobes. I look at her real quick, decide what we're going to do. I'm still pushing really high carb days for her. Like a regular day, she'll have like 3 carb meals, and then she has veggie meals. I call them veggie meals, but I'm still letting her have stuff like corn or carrots or peas. So it's not really
Okay.
only fibrous veggies. So on the carb days, she's having that. And we're still at least 1, sometimes 2 days a week. I'm pushing, she weighs 100 and about 125 pounds. I'm
Okay.
pushing her to 175, 200 grams of carbs at least once, sometimes 2 days a week, and her body's still dropping, man. So
And I was gonna ask you, since you guys are married, does it sounds like it actually makes it easier for you? And I would have thought it would be harder because there's the I guess well, you're both pros, so that's the thing. You'd like separate the wife husband piece from the coaching and
we
training
try, we
piece.
try to, we try to, and it's and I told her that whenever we did this last year, in my stern, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
as stern as you're going to be with your wife. I said,
yeah.
look, okay, so if we're going to do this, then here's how this needs to be. If we're doing a check-in, anything I say to you, I'm saying to you as a coach. I was like,
Right.
I'm not going to be an asshole or anything like
Right,
that.
right, right, right. But it's that whole
But
like this is the role I'm in
right,
right
we
now.
need to make sure that when we have those discussions, we're in this box, and anything that we talk about stays there. And there are sometimes, you get late into a diet. Because we're both dieting, tempers get short, people get tired. But what's really great is it's almost like we're like this. So on
Right.
the days where I'm feeling really, really crap, she's having a better day, and she's there to say, hey, we chose this, dial it down a notch.
Right.
We
Right.
we chose this. And the same thing, like if she's having a day where she's sick of the zero carbs, or she's sick of this or sick of that, or doesn't want to look at one more thing of cauliflower and chicken, just reminding, hey, this, go look in the mirror. You look
No,
better
for
now than
sure.
you did on stage, and just being able to keep each other in check and keep each other positive. And also, she might smother me in my sleep.
There is
Probably
that.
push so hard.
So there's a lot of trust and love in
Oh,
the
yeah.
in the
But
process.
joking aside, I mean, she is as close to a machine. I say it, she does it to the best of her ability. Like I said, if she's working around an injury, she works around the injury. We find a way to do it. And yeah, it's been good. It's been really good, and it's always easier when you're not suffering alone. Because I see a lot of folks where one person is prepping, and the other person, even if they're not eating things around them, they kind of resent it because I'm being limited because of what you're
Yeah,
doing.
yeah, for
Yeah, and
sure.
I remember even the first time that she competed. So the first time she competed was in 2020. So I was getting ready for the state championship in August, and her show was not until October. So she didn't need to start dieting until June or July. She started her diet when I started mine. She was like, "Nah, you're not doing this by yourself. We're doing it together."
Just to give you solidarity, to be like,
Exactly. So,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
so when I finished the state show in August, I said, "You know what? I'm gonna diet another 8 weeks. I'll do your show with you. We'll do everything together, and then we'll break the diet together."
For
And I've
sure.
it's been great. I can see with some folks how it could go off the rails, but it's worked out well for us so far.
So this is interesting. Let me share a contrasting story. So you know that I lost a few years ago, I lost like 80, 90 pounds. I used to be like super heavy and all that. And my wife also used to be a little heavy. And then once she saw what I did and saw that it stuck, she was like, well, help me do this. I want to do that too. And we did. And she looks phenomenal. And but here's the difference. There is a difference between lifestyle cutting to be in shape where like the goal is like a maintenance for a long time versus a contest prep which is your optimal look for that one day that's like perfect, which of course requires far more focused and far harder prep than somebody just maintaining a healthy weight, or a
Right.
weight where they look good on the beach and that's it. But interestingly enough, once she started training and lifting more seriously, now we actually have, or she has her own coach because she's outgrown what I do. And she has her own style of how she approaches things. Plus, I know how to train a guy. I don't know how to train a woman. I'm sure, for example, I know you know how to do that. Todd started by teaching women
Mhm.
a women's physique, I believe, is what he did, or women's bikini, I think, is what he used to. I mean, he does all kinds of folks now, lifestyle and bodybuilders.
Mhm.
But it's such a different approach when it's the lifestyle thing long term. It's so funny. It's the same as when we talk about like training and lifting, like the difference between like the gym bro who just wants to be fit, like me, versus your competitors, and for example, when we talk about the things we do, somebody like me, probably you want that longevity to go hand in hand with performance, whereas you guys can be a little bit riskier with the performance because you want to be superhuman. So,
But at
you
the
know,
same time, we have to balance that with the fact that, hey, it took me, we've only been married for 3 years. It took me over 40 years to find my wife I'd like to stick around for.
yeah,
So
that's true.
it really is a balance. And what we find is in the off season, it really is more of a lifestyle type thing. I mean, yeah, I'm still weighing everything. I measure all my meals. I do our food prep every day. But we also know that, okay, if it's the off season and, we work in every week some kind of with some cheat days, cheat meals on the weekends are bigger than others. Sometimes it'll be a pizza, sometimes it'll be a steak on the grill and baked potatoes, sometimes
Yeah,
we'll make burgers at home. We don't really like to go out to eat very much. We have both found that we like our time at home. Before we started recording, we were talking about mortgage rates and
yeah,
house payments and all this kind of stuff. And
yeah,
our rationale is, look, if we're paying all this money for this place, we're going to enjoy it.
yeah, for
So,
sure.
and I remember a couple of years ago, we had, when we still do something, if it's an anniversary or Valentine's or birthday, we'll still go out and we'll do a drink and an appetizer, get dressed up in our grown up clothes and go out and
For
do
sure, for
something.
sure. You gotta enjoy life.
But I remember the last time we did a huge dinner out, you go out, you spend a car payment on dinner.
Yeah,
We're driving back to the house and she looks at me and she goes, not saying this to be ingracious. I said, I had a great time. She goes, I think I'd have had just as much fun if we would have just had a drink, gone home, got some pizza, and sat on the couch and watched a movie. And I said,
yeah, yeah.
and
Nice
so
glass
that's
of
what we
wine
do,
and
and
just
that's what
chill.
we enjoy. Yeah, just pet the
Yeah,
dogs, eat some pizza, hang out
yeah.
on the couch, and we're
As long
both
as it's
old souls
balanced, that you
anyway.
both enjoy it.
Yeah,
I mean, that's ultimately the payoff. I was gonna ask you during the off season. So now that I'm meeting a lot more people in the bodybuilding community, right? So I've noticed like some people during the off season kind of like let loose a lot. Like
yeah.
they allow themselves to get big. I guess the idea being like eat big, get big, and then but then of course that has, I assume, the risk of like then your prep is gonna be that much harder because now you got that much more to cut. How do you approach that? How do you guys approach that then? Like you don't let yourselves get huge or anything, do
No,
you?
no, I don't. Promised. We promised each other when we got engaged and got married that the other person would never have to bang a fat person.
Fair. Okay.
But, just joking aside, for years I did the whole eat everything in sight. I would be 280 or 285 in the off season. And I kid you not, I would, I work in medical sales and back when I started, before everything went digital, when you would leave samples for a doctor, everything was written on a piece of paper. You leave them their carbon copy. So everybody has a record of everything. So you always had a pen, everything's being written down. And I kid you not, I would get so big. I was in a doctor's office one time. I dropped the pen and it rolled under a shelf in the sample room. And I literally sat there in my head and said, okay, now I can either lean way down there. Bear in mind, I'm like 285 at the time, sporting C cups. It was ugly, man. It was disgusting. Like I can either lean down and pick that pen up, or I can walk down the hall, around the corner to the nurse's station, get another pen. If I bend over like that, I might not make it back up. Yeah, and that
Gotcha.
was
Dang.
and I was just and it was really like that was the last time I got really super heavy in the off season.
Yeah.
That was '06, I think.
Yeah. How
So
tall are you, Larry, by the way? You're
just under
six.
6'3", just under six
Okay, so
three.
6'3",
Yeah,
285. That's a big dude.
yeah, yeah. It was a big ass is what that was. But when I dieted down that year, I dieted down to about 230 and I still wasn't in shape. So that year, I didn't let my weight go over 240. And the next year I dieted
Gotcha.
down to I weighed in at 225. So I was a super, but that was the night before on stage. I was probably closer to 218 after dropping water overnight. Look, and finally, like for the first time in my life, I was in shape. And that was so '05 was the last time I got really heavy. That was in '06. And since then, I've never gotten fat again. Like the heaviest I'll get in the off season was about 250. If I can't see the outline of my abs and see veins in my legs, that's too much because look, there's a time in a person's development when there's nothing wrong with gaining that extra weight. And yes, it's external leverage. Are you lifting more weight because you're stronger or because you have more leverage?
Right.
Does that ultimately you're going to build more contractile mass? Maybe, maybe
Right. Does it
not.
translate to eventually
Right.
show stage lean muscle mass?
But I
Right.
don't know if it does because every time I got up, by the time I would diet down, and remember, I was natty until I was 27, right?
Gotcha.
So that
Yeah.
was 2003. So every time I would go up like that and come back down, I would have been better off just not going more than 20 pounds over my contest weight. I wouldn't have had to kill myself to get in shape. I would have been in better shape. I'd have actually been in shape,
Hmm.
and I probably wouldn't have dieted off muscle. I'm sure I lost muscle. And even when I did jump in, to the PEDs, there was a lot of ignorance there and just thinking, boy, if it's off season, like I thought, okay, here's my menu. Here's what I'm supposed to eat in off season. As long as I get this in, I can eat whatever else I want to. And it just, it, and you don't feel as good, man. Like when I'm in the off season, like I still feel good. I feel great. I have energy. I can lean over and tie my shoes and not worry about passing out when I stand up.
Right. Right.
So, and I think it's a decision everyone has to make, and they make it at different times. I know Paula said the same thing, and
Yeah.
Justin Harris to a larger extent, and some of the other guys that as you get older, there's just no point in putting all that. And again, not even thinking about bodybuilding, thinking about general health. It's just not
Yeah.
good for your heart,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
You're raising your blood pressure. You're raising
Yeah.
your stressors, your systemic stressors. Right.
Exactly, and I think that's one really good thing. There's a lot that's been said about the positives and the negatives of the proliferation of information in the last 15 or 20 years. Kind of Boston Lloyd started it with 3 cc's, and here's what I take, and here's what everybody else takes. And everyone was like, well, this is terrible. This is the end of everything. But even though I don't agree with his methods necessarily, and he and I didn't get along at all at first, but later on, prior to him passing away, we actually did get along. And I still think he was very misguided in a lot of the things that he did and the reasons that he did it. But I don't think he was a bad person. But I think the good that came from what he did was it made, okay, if we're going to be as upfront and honest and open about all this stuff with the PEDs, then people became more cognizant and more consistent with doing blood work and all their markers and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And not just those things. Guys are now realizing, well, what generally kills people long term is you mess up your liver, hepatitis aside, that'll regenerate. As long as you don't have a heart attack, you can get your
Right.
heart in better shape. Whether you're using drugs or not, you're going to have some left ventricular hypertrophy if you're an athlete. But the kidneys, if once your kidneys are done, you're done. You're going to see Jesus, whether you
Yeah.
believe in him
Yeah.
or not.
Yeah.
You're on
Yeah.
you're getting your ticket punched. And so that's made people keep a closer eye on their blood pressure.
For sure.
The other things that play into that. And, I was blessed to meet and work with John Meadows for several years before he passed away. I worked with John between 2012 and 2017. And he told me one time, he said, Larry, he said, if I don't impart anything else to you about health, he said, please take this away. He said, what's your blood pressure? He said, high blood pressure kills more people, not just meatheads, but
Yeah.
everybody. He said, because it's your heart, it's your lungs, it's your kidneys, it's your everything. And that's another byproduct of getting too heavy and doing these things in the off season that, you reach a point of diminishing returns, whether a person is using PEDs or whether they're natural. And ultimately, and this was a very hard pill for me to swallow, I had to reach a point where I realized it didn't matter what I did, what
Hmm.
supplements I took.
Yeah.
I'm never going to be Dennis Wolf or Gunter Schlierkamp. I don't have those genes. I've
Yeah.
got
I
the
was gonna say, like,
skeleton.
you understand where you are in the
Yeah,
genetic pool, right?
exactly. And
So.
once you know that, and the sooner you learn that and accept, and I'm not saying that shouldn't mean that a person shouldn't dream and shouldn't strive and shouldn't go, but I'll give you an example, and you can look this guy up. There was a gentleman back in the late 90s, early 2000s. His name was Noah Steer, Tere. He is about 6'5". He competed 290, 300, 310. He was a freak monster. I was working out in the Fayetteville, North Carolina area of my territory yesterday. And when I'm down there, I train at the World Gym. So I'm in there working out, and in walks this huge,
Right.
bald headed dude. And at first, I was like, is Nathan Jones in this gym? I looked, and it was Noah Steer. Now, I'd never met him before, but I recognized him. We spoke, and and we got to talking, and he's like I said, he's 6'5", he's still weighing around 280, very lean, and his competitive days have been over for 20 years.
Right.
So I guarantee you he's not doing the risky things that people do to get huge. But here this man is with a ton of injuries. He did a chest workout. I didn't see him go over 225 on bench, but
Hmm.
he's still
He
bigger
didn't have to.
than but the point that I'm making is when you have those genes, you have those genes. Some people are just built to be bigger humans. And it's funny, I heard someone say, and I can't remember who it was, or I'd give them credit. We know if you want to be an offensive lineman in the NFL and you're not 6'5", 290 pounds, running a five flat 40, you're not going to do it. We know that if you're 5'4", if you're not Spud Webb, you're not making it in the NBA. Some reason bodybuilders believe that they can drug themselves to superior genes, and it just can't be done.
It's the will to power,
Yeah,
Ubermensch, Nietzschean kind of like, if I dream it and work it hard enough, I can make it happen.
yeah,
And but there's definitely, like you said, there's that component too. And the other thing is, like, I guess if you don't push yourself, you don't know where that limit is either. So
true. Yeah,
you gotta kind of like push, 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 and then make the realization, like you said, because the guy that is genetically gifted is gonna push, 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 and keep pushing and go like, oh,
yep.
I can go further, I can do
I
more,
can give
or
you
whatever.
yeah, I can give you an example, and again, like I said, I think actually if you've got a dream, man, push and
Yeah,
go,
no
and in
doubt.
bodybuilding, within 5 years, if you're training hard, if you're eating right, if you're sleeping, if you're doing the things you need to do, whether you're using drugs or not, there will be signs, right?
Yeah,
If you're
yeah.
meant for this sport, there will be signs. When I was going to college, I went to UNC Chapel Hill, and there was a young man that went to college here with me. He was pre-med, a friend of mine. His name was Aaron. Aaron was about 5'6" or 5'7". Aaron would about twice a year, he would do like a 12 or 16-week cycle. And he would just, it's back in the day when you get the Organon Sustanon amps. He would do 3 Sustanon 250 amps a week. That's all he would do. Do 750 milligrams a week. Within 2 weeks, it looked like someone had stuck an air hose in him and blown him up. And it wasn't fluid retention. It wasn't puffy.
Right. It
He
was
just
like it
like
looked
it was like
jacked.
everything that he ate went to sarcoplasm and he filled out and started getting big and strong. And I was just like, this is amazing. It was before I really understood, hey, genetics.
Yeah.
And then I remember his brother came down to visit at one point,
Hmm.
and his brother walks in and looked just like him, except he was about 2 or 3 inches taller. It looked like Rick and Scott Steiner walking through. I mean, they were both just
Jeez.
their shoulders were this wide, their waist and hips were this big, and they look like 2 just big ass
Just mutants.
Neanderthal. Oh my gosh. And on top of that, typically if you know someone, if they're genetically gifted, is they're either physically gifted or they're intellectually gifted. Aaron was pre-med. His brother, sister, mother, and father were all doctors. So not only did he
Okay.
have, you
So he
know,
won the intellectual lottery too.
yeah, yeah, it was sick. Now it's funny because when it came to math and science, he was a genius. Poor kid couldn't string a sentence together to save his life.
Interesting.
So he
Okay.
pay he would pay me to write papers for him. I guess we're past the statute of limitations to get degrees taken away. So yeah, but yeah, and that was kind of at that point I was like, okay, I was starting to understand, and he didn't do anything different from me. We trained the same, we ate the same, we both were in class, we both worked, both got our 8 hours of sleep at night, but there are signs, there are things that you'll see. And like I said, going back to Noah Steer, here he is. He's 5 years older than me. So he's 54. He just trains to maintain, and the dude is bigger than most people can ever hope to be if they're taking 3 or 4 grams a week. And it's a hard pill to swallow, but sometimes you just have to realize that, you know, we
Yeah.
can't all
I
be
mean,
Michael Jordan.
it's that luck of the draw.
It is.
And the other thing is like, because there are so many, so there's the genetic factor, there's the training factor, eating factor, sleep and rest factor,
And then
recovery.
there's the mental factor.
Yes, because not everyone knows what going to failure actually means,
No. Well, and
or
it's
how
not
to
just
actually do
yep,
that.
and it's not just in the gym, it's at the dinner table too. Dorian Yates said more than once, he said, if you could put my will in Flex Wheeler's brain, no one would ever have beaten him. And I
Yeah.
believe that. So
Yeah.
you got to have that right mix. So for me, it was a matter of, okay, I'm never going to be 270 pounds on stage. I
Right.
wish. But what I can do is I can suffer and I can embrace the suck and I can get absolutely peeled. So that's what I do. I mean, that's the only way I've ever won anything is by being the most conditioned guy. And, you do what you can do.
Yeah, by the way, speaking of that, this segues into a couple of things that I wanted to ask you about.
Yeah.
First of all, let's do the algorithm a favor. Let's do the algorithm a favor and let's talk about the God blessed sugar diet and sugar fast.
Okay.
Let's just do it. So just so you know, you and I are both on a certain board online. Let's not get into specifics. And lately, finally I hit like so I took Todd's advice and I upped my GH a little bit and my test a little bit. By the way, estrogen still in the 20s. Beautiful. So
Yeah.
no
Mine's
AIs,
too
no
low.
nothing.
Did you
So
see
what?
my bloods that I put up?
No, I
Oh,
haven't. I
dude, my
haven't. I'd love to
my
check that out.
my sensitive estrogen is like it was like 7 point something. It's in the toilet. Yeah,
Wow.
we're trying to. I'm working with my HRT guy trying to figure that out because due to that, my IGF-1 was 56.
What the heck?
Yep,
Okay, that's really weird.
that's terrible. I mean, like normal
I have to
ranges, I
take some
think.
D-ball.
Yeah,
Raise that estrogen
and
artificially, man.
that's and we used to I had a friend who used to do my blood work, and he
Uh,
used to joke with me because I was always so dry, and I've never had to use diuretics getting ready for a show, and I'm always dry. And he said, "Yeah," he said, "I think your body just doesn't produce ADH, anti-diuretic hormone, but I think the real story is my estrogen production is in the toilet.
super low.
It's super low, so
Yeah.
I never retain. I don't retain water.
You don't retain
Nope.
water. Yeah.
Dude,
Yeah.
we can have a cheat night." And I'll eat our favorite pizza is Jet's Pizza. It's deep dish Detroit style.
Oh, that sounds good.
I'll eat like 5 pieces this big and a bunch of breadsticks and my wife's homemade cookies. And I'll wake up the next morning and I'll be 2 pounds heavier, take a dump, and be completely dry. Like I don't hold a bit of
Lucky
water. It's
you.
the dumbest thing ever.
So let me tell you about water retention. I totally forgot that when you up your GH dose, there's a period that your body kind of adjusts to and holds water. Man, all I did was up it by one from 3 a day to four.
You
One
get
unit.
the you get the
That's it.
elephant
One
ankles.
unit.
Elephant ankles.
My ankles looked like I had cankles, bro. I had like these tree trunk legs for like 2 weeks. Only today has been the first day that they've like my Aura ring. Normally I'd wear it here, which
Mhm.
today I can. But the last 2 weeks I've had to wear it here on my on my ring finger because I couldn't even fit it. It was ridiculous.
That's
But
funny. Well, they say that sometimes they put what's the substance that they say that
the dimmer or
the
whatever it is, the
dimmer, yeah,
dimer,
that they'll put
dimer, whatever it is.
in the branded GHs to make them not retain as much water, but I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know.
Now, the other thing is like I have a feeling that I'm pretty hyper responsive to GH too.
Okay.
There is that because when I went from no GH to 2 units when I first started, I dropped weight after that initial blow. It was crazy. I could not keep weight on, and
Really?
I eat a lot.
So it
And
obviously did negatively impact your
yeah,
insulin
yeah. I
sensitivity.
mean, and
But
there's a combination because that's the other thing. There's so many factors because I played around with tirzepatide,
yeah,
before Reta, before Reta was cool, and that definitely made a huge difference. My inflammation went down. My fasting glucose was like 80,
yeah.
70 something, perfect. Which I used to be pre-diabetic, so.
Right. I remember you saying that. So I've not experimented with any of the GLP-1s. I've done some research on them, and
Mhm,
from my understanding, when it comes to either the Tirzep or the Retta, the big difference is
mhm.
the Retta has a more of an impact on what your glucagon production, and the
Correct. Yeah.
tirzepatide exhibits, like the way I've heard it described is like it helps reduce the food noise in a person's head.
Tirzepatide is better if you're somebody like me that I tend to overeat. I tend to be heavy if
Yeah.
I'm not careful, right? If I'm not like my baseline, let's say.
Right.
If I'm not mindful, I tend to eat a lot. I can do a lot of emotional eating. Now I'm aware of that. So tirzepatide eliminates the food noise completely. Reta, I tried it for about 2 weeks. There was definitely food noise compared to tirzepatide, but the weight loss was better. I will
Really?
say that.
Okay,
It
because of the
seemed to
glucagon.
Yeah, and that must be that extra channel. Well, I mean,
Okay.
Paul, I know that Paul started with Reta, had a great experience. Then he tried tirzepatide, nowhere near as good as experience for him in his case. Now he's a real diabetic though, so it's
Right.
a little different. You know, everyone's a little different. But for him, it was night and day. Like tirzepatide that just doesn't do it for him. You know?
I've wondered about toying with that. I mean, obviously, I can get in shape without it, but I've wondered what would it be like? Like,
Super easy.
would it make it easy?
Yeah,
Yeah, because I don't have a hard time. Like for me, it's and again, I'm not tooting my own horn. I think you know me well enough to know I'm not
yeah,
that guy.
yeah.
But when if my coach writes something on a piece of paper, well,
Mhm.
then that's just what I'm gonna do,
Right. That's
right?
the law, and that's what you do.
Well, it's
Okay.
not just that. It's I'm not gonna wipe my butt with money. If I pay him to
Yeah.
help me, him sending me that spreadsheet, that to me, that's money. So I'm not gonna waste that money. And so when it's time to diet, I flip the switch, I go, and I'm not ever gonna cheat. I could have, the entire candy aisle in my cupboard. I'm not gonna cheat on my diet.
I mean,
So
in that case, I would say you're a Reta person 100% because you don't need the food
right, it's
noise
not the food
elimination.
noise thing. Yeah. So that's why I was saying that. I just it's hard not to be curious about it. It really
Yeah,
is.
yeah, and it's so easy, and I mean, you can do the once a week shot, you can do the microdose. There's so many modalities, and the other thing is not just the weight loss or the food noise; it's the anti-inflammatory piece. For me, that was remarkable.
So what did you see with that? And
So
how did you
the
notice it?
body aches and recovery, my sleep got better.
Was this with the Retta or the tirzepatide?
With tirzepatide. Well,
Okay.
actually, both. That was good on both. Both were great for that, or both are great for that.
So
But
did
I
it help
noticed it in
you?
my recovery. Now my resting heart rate with tirzepatide stayed. It's usually very low. It's like in the mid 50s
Mhm.
in my case. But with Reta, it was a little higher. I did notice that. It was like 62,
Yeah.
64.
So
So there's that.
with the sleep piece, was it helping you get to sleep faster or just helping you stay asleep better?
Stay asleep. Stay asleep. I'm a very light sleeper. I had a very traumatic experience in my youth. PTSD basically.
Okay.
Just PTSD type thing. So I've always had the whole like my brain's always like kind of high cortisol, aware of everything. So staying asleep is hard naturally. And this has helped. This has definitely helped. So there is that benefit for sure.
I would love to have so I have no problem falling asleep. But I get up every 90 minutes. You can just about set your watch by it to go to the bathroom. And
Yeah. Yeah.
it's not, hey, you're a bodybuilder that's in almost 50 years old with a large prostate
I was
dribble.
gonna say,
It's
like, is that
no,
the
dude. It's like
masteron?
no, no, no.
Okay.
It's go to the bathroom and stand there with an out of control fire hose for 30 to 45 seconds because it's a full on, so I know it's a healthy thing. And plus my PSA last time was under 2, it was like 1.6.
Yeah,
So
so you're
I'm
fine.
not worried about
And
that.
the other thing is you've already said that you don't retain water.
Exactly.
So
Exactly. So I would love to even if it meant
mhm.
that I got up every 3 hours to go to the bathroom. If I could,
Yeah,
like, only get up twice during the night to go to the bathroom, that would be a
sure.
godsend.
Yeah, no, that would make a huge difference.
That really
So
would.
give it a whirl, man. I
Might
mean,
do it.
nowadays it's so easy to find, be it gray market or even your doctor, man. You know, like there's so many ways. So, but I highly recommend it, like for sure. And I, even now at a weight that I'm healthy, and I've got my own issues of having been very obese. It's we've talked about this. Like for the first time ever, I shared those pictures with the group on the forum today. And that took like mental effort. Like, "Ooh, I don't know how comfortable I am with this." And then I look at
Sure.
them and like, dude, you're lean for a 54-year-old. Like, why are you thinking like that?
Well,
And
it's not just where you are, it's where you've come from.
yeah,
Like, it's
yeah.
who was it? Someone said the other day, I can't remember. Anyway, and it's something I've said forever. It's hard to get in shape. It's easy to stay in shape.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. It
So
really
when you
is.
look at where you've come from and I don't think if I look at myself over the last 5 years, I don't think I've done anything remarkable. I lose 10 or 15 pounds getting ready for a show. I gain it back for the off season. Who cares? That's not special. You lost how much total?
80, about 80,
That's a big
80,
friggin' deal.
85, something like
Yeah,
that.
that's a freaking fourth grader.
Yeah, it's
You
like a
lost an
toddler.
elementary school kid.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's a big deal, man. I mean, so yeah, you should, again, it's not just where you are, where'd you come from? And in a
Yeah.
short, not that long ago.
Hmm.
So you have to
No, and
be
that's why
cognizant of
I'm
that.
kind of on this quest to find like, okay, what can I improve at this age? I mean, this is the third act. Let's be honest,
Right.
54. But
Second
I
act.
was
Second act.
second. Okay,
Second
fair.
act.
Second, I like it better. Third, I guess,
I
is the
told my wife
final one.
she's gonna be stuck around with me till I'm 100. You're gonna be changing diapers.
I like it. I like that. And if she said okay, then she loves you.
She did, she did. But again, smothering in the sleep is not outside the realm of
Yeah, yeah.
possibility.
I mean, hey, ultimately, women always have the right to change their minds at any moment, and
Yeah,
that's just how it is.
it's
So,
only acceptable for the dog to poop in the house, not for the people.
right, not for us.
So
But anyway,
the sugar
uh,
diet you were talking about.
yeah, yeah. So I was gonna ask you if that's a modality or something. Like, I'm curious enough. So what leads into this is like I wanted to see, since it's summertime and I'm already fairly lean, how lean can I go and what does that look like? And of course, now the sugar diet comes into play with the idea of natural sugars all day long with then the protein at the end.
Mhm,
Apparently that the trick is in the evening you can do your protein if you're doing the sugar diet
mhm.
versus a sugar fast, which is like no protein, no fats, just straight sugar, which is that sounds frightening to me. I don't even have that much of a sweet tooth, so I don't know if I could do that. But I might try
So
it next week.
to me, if I'm wrong, this when he was talking about 1,000 or however many grams of sugars, he's not talking about every day. He's talking about it at a loading point, correct?
So I think if I understood the base original plan, it's fruit related sugars, if you can, and candy that like Haribo Gold Bears
Right.
that are
Glucose.
non-fructose,
Right.
right? Glucose,
Yep.
not fructose, right? All day long. Not really even a loading phase. You just do that throughout the day. And then in the evening is when you can have starches,
Hmm.
low fat, if any, trace amounts of fat, and then your protein, if you're
Yeah.
doing the diet,
So I would look at something like that. I would look at that the same way as a high carb day on a carb cycle. I would eat as little fat as possible. But speaking to the entire thing itself, I know that Mark Bell is one of the ones that's popularized this, and he's come from a very, I mean, we're talking about years of being a carnivore guy, being a very
Yeah, the
lean,
the
very
complete flip side, right?
right. And so his insulin sensitivity, I'm sure, is through the roof, right?
Hmm.
He's super, super. It's like when someone comes off a contest diet, your insulin sensitivity is great. You can eat wherever, if you eat clean, like I weighed in last year at 226. I was in the leanest I'd ever been. And then afterwards, I went right back and I was carb cycling between 5, 7, and 1,000, 500, 700,000 grams of carbs a day, not
Wow.
eating any
Okay.
junk. And
Right,
within
right,
like 3 or 4 weeks, I'm like 240 and not as sharp as I was on stage, but full and bursting and not like a 240 in the off season because you can't maintain that forever.
right,
But
right.
with the sugar, I don't like. I understand the hormone that they talk about that it takes advantage of. Like I understand that mechanism and
Right,
how that
right. That
works.
whole FSF FSG21, whatever it
Yeah,
is. Yeah.
yeah. So whenever this thing first came up, I did some reading. I was okay. I understand how that works. That all makes sense. But ultimately, I think something like that is you're gonna have the person that's gonna do that is gonna need to make sure they're set up for it, make sure insulin sensitivity is good, and then you're not just gonna jump into 1,000 grams a day or whatever. You're gonna have to. Person's gonna have to experiment with their level of
Yeah.
carbohydrate because everyone's a little bit different. I don't, and I never have liked wild swings one way or the other. Like if you
Yeah, there's
are
something about the extreme, right?
it is. I mean, like, I'm a pretty conservative guy, but I'm not a right-wing bomb thrower, and if you're a left-wing woke bedwetter, I don't have any use for you either. So, the fringes are never good in anything. That's where all the craziness is. I'm not saying there's no utility in a program like this, and I'm sure there are a lot of people that will have success with it. For me personally, I I've been doing the carb cycling, modality for years, years and years and years now. Recently, I've been more aggressive with it after starting to follow Paul and getting back into Justin Harris's stuff a couple of years ago, where I'll have my very low carbohydrate days on non-training days and my medium days 700 grams of carbs in a couple of days a week. This is off season, 10, 11, 1200 grams. So that's still pretty wild swings, but I've slowly worked up to that over time with this sugar diet thing. Again, I think as long as the person understands mechanistically what they're trying to accomplish, and it's not because, with any fad, with anything new that happens, like when keto became big a few years ago,
Yeah.
people were just indiscriminately eating sausage and cheese and this thing and that thing, not
Yeah.
realizing at the end of the day, you still need to be in a caloric deficit, or it doesn't matter how depressed your insulin levels are. So I think there's going to be a lot of that here. I think there are going to be people who are claim to be adherents to this type of program, and they're not going to be successful because they're going to eat way too much food. And at the end of the day, no, your body is not a bomb calorimeter. Neither does the second law of thermodynamics stop at your front door just because you want to do the newest fad. So
For sure.
I think it's like anything. It's curiosity tempered with just a little bit of common sense. I think that's always the answer. That's just me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we'll see. Like I said, it seemed like an intriguing thought. I have no issues with, usually I'm very easy to follow like a high protein,
Yeah.
decent amount of fats and carbs here and there, kind of an approach that's never been a problem. So who knows?
tell
It
you.
might be an interesting modality though to explore.
For someone like myself, so today was an off day of training. So Kevin, the guy who does my nutrition for pre-contest, whenever he still has me do high days and low days with carbs, but the swings aren't as big. So right now I'm doing my 5 training days. I'm eating 675 grams of carbohydrate. And my 2 non-training days, I'm eating 200. Those
Makes
days when I'm at
sense.
675, I'm ravenous and I'm eating pretty low fat. I mean, I'm having like a half an ounce of almonds with each meal, so not a lot of fat. Um, but I'll finish a meal and I've got my meal set up to eat every 2 hours. Hour later, I'm looking for food. Today, 200 grams of carbs, same protein, same fat.
Right.
I've got, oh crap, it's been 2.5 hours and I've not eaten yet.
Not an
Because the
issue.
more
Yeah.
carbohydrate I eat, yeah, I feel like I want to eat more. And I know for myself, if I were eating carbohydrate throughout the day and saving the starches and the proteins dude, I would eat way too many calories. I mean, it almost
Yeah.
sounded like the DNP diet. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think something like that would be wonderful for me. But like, again, there are folks out there I'm sure can make it work.
For sure. For sure. Hey, you want to talk some nerdy stuff? Just real quick. So a
Absolutely.
couple of things that crossed my or caught my attention in the nerd sphere. First, did you hear about this new Alien show that's coming out on
Yeah,
TV?
Alien Earth. I actually saw the first advertisement for it I saw today.
Uh-huh.
It looks good.
What do you think?
It looks good. I'm trying to figure out where it fits in the timeline because
So
there's one all
I think it's
encompassing
like
timeline.
40 years before the first Alien movie,
Okay, so
like the original
it's
Alien.
after Prometheus and it's after
Yeah. Yeah.
Covenant.
Yeah, I think so. Either right before or right I want to say it's either right before or right after because it's when the synthetic humans are
Right, when they've
starting to be
started those.
developed.
Okay. Now, what was that alien movie that came out last year? What was it called?
Romulus.
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 I saw
Yeah.
that. I didn't see it in the theater. It's
That
funny.
was
My
good.
wife and I, we agree on everything except for 2 things. She doesn't like country music. I love it. Couldn't tell that
Okay.
by listening to my voice. And
Uh-huh.
she doesn't like anything that's kind of horror themed. So like
Okay.
slashers, movies like she doesn't care for that stuff. So that kind of
Yeah.
stuff, if we go to the theater, it wouldn't be for something like that. Something like Mission Impossible or
Yeah.
the Jack
Action.
Reed,
More
like
action.
she loves that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
we'll do that. Or the Marvel movies or superhero stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I didn't see Romulus until February. I had to fly out to Fort Worth for some training
Hmm.
for work. My company's headquartered in Fort Worth, and they had it as an in-flight movie option. So I
Right.
watched it. I freaking loved that movie. It was
It was
so
good.
good.
It was very good.
Really, really good. So
Yeah.
and I know that there were people who I didn't think a whole lot of the Alien Predator movies. They're fun, but they weren't great.
Yeah.
Alien,
They were less than the some other parts.
exactly. Alien, masterpiece. Aliens,
Yeah.
masterpiece.
Yeah. Absolutely.
3, 4,
Yeah.
Not many. There were a lot of people that didn't like Prometheus or Covenant. I loved both of them. I
Those
love those
were
movies.
cool because of the concepts. It was the
Yeah.
concepts that was like,
And here's the
whoa.
thing. I wasn't really a fan of the Alien movies until those came out. So I think what happened to me was I was not a dyed in the wool Alien fan that had a preconceived notion of
Hmm.
what the genesis was going to be. So that didn't spoil anything or disappoint for me. I was like, oh, this is just what is. It's like when the prequels came out, I grew up with episodes 4, 5, and 6 of Star Wars.
Yeah.
In 1999, when we go, for years, my friends and I have been like, how are they going to come to power? How's Anakin going to fall? How's Palpatine come to power?
Right, right, right.
All this stuff.
All the questions.
Right. And I didn't not like the prequels, but I wasn't quite satisfied by them because they weren't what I expected. Kids that grew up with the prequels loved it because that was their Star Wars. You
Sure,
know,
sure.
when I grew up, again, I grew up in the 80s. I grew up with Transformers. I grew up with the 86 movie and
Same.
when the Michael
100%.
Bay movies came out, I was
Hmm.
like, I want to find that man and crack his skull like an egg because that crap was horrible. But then I had to take a step back and be okay. For a lot of kids that was their G1.
Yeah,
And what those movies did is, as much as they were not good movies, they made a ton of money that
yeah,
let Transformers franchise continue and become this huge thing that it is now. So I'm getting all of my G1 stuff. I'm getting all my masterpieces from Japan. HasLab doing their crowdfundings. I just
yeah.
got Omega Prime. So it's
Because the interest is there now.
exactly.
You know,
So you have to look at these properties in terms of, okay, let's look at the big picture. Now, having said that, you look at Star Wars. Kathleen Kennedy, I hope she steps on a Lego. She's a horrible, 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 horrible manager. You've got the sequel trilogy, which was objectively terrible. I felt bad for J.J. Abrams because he crafted episode 7. Ryan
right.
Johnson came in with 8 and just crapped on everything. And
Yeah.
then JJ came back with 9 and he tried his best. But,
To put something together that makes sense.
right.
Yeah.
He was trying to clean a bathroom where someone just had explosive diarrhea all over the walls and you can't get the stink out. It's never going to
Yeah.
be the same. And then we got the first 2 seasons of Mandalorian. Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
Those
we
were
got
great.
Obi-Wan and we got Ahsoka and we got, what was that god awful mess last summer with the two
Boba Fett, the Book of
no, no,
Boba.
no. Well, that wasn't great. No,
Yeah, that was
the
not great.
lesbian force witches.
The Acolyte.
Acolyte. That was
Yeah.
terrible. But
Yeah.
then we get Andor, season 1 and season 2.
Yeah. And
Dude, I
Andor
just
was
finished Andor the other day.
some of the best Star Wars ever.
Unbelievable.
Ever.
As soon as that, so I've been watching it while I do my cardio.
Yeah.
Well,
I see.
right there. So every morning I'd get up and an episode was about 40 minutes long. So I'd
Mhm.
watch an episode. And the other day I finished it. It was an odd amount of time and I finished it and I had like 15 minutes of cardio left to do. I punched up Rogue One and started it from the beginning.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
Because it flows beautifully.
my gosh, Andor has made Rogue One even better, which was an awesome
Yeah.
movie. And Rogue One makes episode 4 even better.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you. To me, it's like episode 5 is my favorite.
Tippy top.
Episode
Tippy top,
5.
yeah.
Then I have to. I know the Star Wars nerds are gonna hate this, and maybe that's what I need again for the algorithm. But to me, Rogue One and Episode 4 are
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah, they're
Right
2
there.
and 2A. Absolutely.
Yeah, and they're almost like they're so linked too. That's the other thing. Like really, when you see them, it's
They're
like
two halves. They're two halves of a
Yeah.
story.
yeah,
Then-
they are.
So
They
now
are.
that I've watched, I want to go back and watch season 1 of Andor again and watch it all the way through. It was
Yeah,
the storytelling is so good. It's like this is what Star Wars can be. It can be this
So-
good.
it feels like what they did in Andor, which they did not do in the other shows, is this: trust the audience. Don't insult the audience's intellect. Trust them that you can tell them a complex, multi-layered story, even if it's a slow burn, because they will stick with it and they will follow it if you give them quality.
You
And that's what they
have
did.
something, and you can have something that doesn't pay off until 7 or 8 episodes later, and the
Right.
audience will remember. You don't
Yeah.
have to spoon feed it to them. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
love
because
it so
season
much.
2, like the last 5 episodes, that slow build to that climax was insane.
So good. Like the episodes leading up to the to the massacre in the town
Yeah,
square. Like you
yeah.
could
The
feel it
tension.
building. It was
Yeah.
like, it was one of those things where I was just hoping, yeah, I know where it's going, but I'm like, man, maybe if this person would do this different or this person would do that different. And they wrote characters that you cared about, right?
Yeah.
I mean, whether it was
Yeah.
Cyril or what was the blonde haired girl's name? I keep wanting to say Dina, Dedra, Dedra,
Dara. Dara?
Dedra,
Dara.
Dedra.
Oh,
Yeah,
Deidre. Deidre.
Deidre,
Yeah. Yeah.
Deidre, yeah.
The
So Cyril and Deidre, I mean, even Cyril's mother, like
yeah. Yeah.
that woman, like I just want to strangle her, but she was
She
still
was
a good
great.
character.
That actress was great.
And you and like all the what was the guy's name that was helping Andor rescue Andor and K2 were rescuing the one who got away, Moshi. He was the same one at the beginning of Rogue One. He's the one that goes to rescue Jen and she hits him in the face with a shovel. Go back and look. That's the
Yeah.
same actor.
Yeah.
So it's
That's
all
true.
tied together. So, oh, it's so good, man. It's so
Yeah.
good. And I'm going to go back to Alien. I'm saying all this for a reason.
No, we'll get back to
I
it.
saw bootleg footage. Star Wars Celebration in Japan was a few weeks ago. I saw bootleg footage of a scene from Mandalorian and Grogu.
How's that looking?
That scene, so it was one of the big AT-ATs like they had on Scarif in Rogue One, like one of the big monster
Yeah.
scenes.
Yeah.
And the whole fight scene was the Mandalorian coming in through the back of the cargo hold and fighting his way. It was like the hallway scene in the first season of Daredevil.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's what it was like. It was like a minute and a half scene of him coming through
Just
there,
cutting his way through.
and fighting his way, and the AT-AT driver closing the thing and trying to hide, and then
Right.
you see a big explosion, and you see him flying away holding Grogu, and it's just like, okay, this might be good. I'm sick of Pedro Pascal, but he'll have the helmet on, so it'll be okay.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see how he does in Fantastic Four. From what I've heard,
I don't have
I've
any
been
faith
reading
in that
about it.
movie, boss.
I'm not convinced,
I'm
man.
not convinced. It's gonna be more of the MCU.
Yeah,
It's going to be Sue Storm's story. It's going to be Sue Storm and Shia Ball's story. We don't have Norrin Rad as the surfer. It's going to be Mommy and Franklin Richards save the day with an assist from Shia Ball, and Ben and Johnny and Reed are just because they offered the part of Reed Richards to several other actors. And after they read the script, they didn't want it because they didn't want to take a back seat. But if you and look, I'm not getting political, but we all know that in real life, Pedro Pascal's a little cuck, and he'll say anything to make the left happy, and whatever. And so obviously he looks at a role like this, and he's like, "Oh yeah, absolutely, I'll play it.
yeah,
I'll take the payday." So I'm scared that I'm trying to say to myself, I know it's an alternate reality. I know they come into our reality because we see them at
right,
the end of Thunderbolts.
right.
So I'm wanting to say, okay, I know that in the comic books in Universe X and Earth X, and that alternate reality, Shia Ball did become the Silver Surfer. And that was a great story the way it was told. So I'm willing to say, okay, that's that universe.
Right. It's one alternate. Yeah,
Right. But having said that, are they going to make Galactus a singularity that exists across
yeah.
all
Across the
universes?
multiverse, right? Like that's a
And
question.
they've delayed Avengers Doomsday because they can see, because what they're trying to do is correct all this multiverse stuff they've done
With the
years ago.
TVA and all that
Yeah, so
craziness. Yeah.
years ago there was a storyline in the comics. There's an author called Jonathan Hickman, and he wrote Avengers and New Avengers for several years, and it was some of the best comics ever written. He went over to X-Men about 3 or 4 years ago, did the same thing there. He's incredible. If anyone out there likes comics or thinks they like comics and you're looking to get into comics, if you see written by Jonathan Hickman on it, spend your money. You will not be
Okay.
disappointed. The man's awesome. So anyway, he did this storyline into what they call Secret Wars. Now, Marvel had Secret Wars back in the 80s.
See,
So this
that's
was
the Secret Wars I know. Is the one
right.
in Battle Planet and the
And that's
Beyonder and all
and
that fun
that's so
stuff.
it kind
Yeah.
of played on that because what it did. So you remember the original Secret Wars, the Beyonder bought them all to Battle World
Yeah.
and made
Yeah.
them fight. And you
Yeah.
had other things come off from that. You had Doom have to help everyone, and Hulk being seen as an ally.
Yeah.
Spider-Man gets the symbiote. So we saw a lot of things
That's
come
right.
from that.
That's where Venom started, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So what Secret Wars did in like 12, 13, 14, whenever it was. It's been about 10 years. What
Mhm.
that Secret Wars did, it was at the end of all these multiverses. So they had all these singularities converge. You remember in Multiverse of Madness, they talked about the incursions, right? And so that's what they did here. And all these incursions happened until it came down to one Earth. And that Earth ended up being Battle World. And you had
Okay.
Hulk land, and you had this land where Doctor Doom was the despot, and you had all these little sections of Battle World. That's my theory of what's going to happen for
It's
Secret
the
Wars and for
second
Doomsday.
iteration of Secret Wars.
Exactly. And I think that's what Secret Wars and Doomsday are going to be. And it's going to be a way to correct the MCU and bring everything together. So
Well,
we'll
hopefully.
see. We'll see.
Hopefully. Let's
But
see
back
if
to
let's see
the
if they pull it off.
but back to the alien thing. So
Mhm.
I can't wait to see the show. Just the preview looks
Mhm.
good. Talking about, I'm guessing the little girl that goes into the synthetic, I'm guessing she has some kind of terminal illness.
Right.
That's what
Apparently.
and I don't know anything apart from what I've seen in that first trailer, but seeing I want to see what those 5 life forms they brought from the darkest corners of the universe.
Right. Right.
Where,
So that's what I've heard. It's like not just the xenomorphs, but
can be
4
other
more
things.
at
Yeah.
least. And then it's the other part that's interesting is because of course we know that in the future Weyland-Yutani kind of takes everything over. It's like
Right.
the big corp. But apparently in this version, in this past, it's still like a battle between the megacorps. Like
Right.
there's multiples. So there's gonna be that whole angle possibly of that corporate espionage and competition, and that should be interesting. So
Yeah. I'm
we
looking
shall
forward
see.
to it. In fact, I'm actually I don't have Hulu. I'm gonna add that to my Disney just so I can watch this when it comes in.
That's fair.
So
That's fair.
I'm looking forward to it.
Another thing coming up, I don't know if you follow this one, Gen V. Do you follow the Gen V and
The
the
boys,
boys?
the
Yeah,
boys. So I've not seen season 3 yet. I heard that it went a little wacky left. I'm
it's
still gonna watch
definitely
it.
not as pure to the original vision.
Right.
How about that?
And I never read the comic. So I can't make that comparison, but I do know I really enjoyed the first 2 seasons. We
I mean,
still
it's still
haven't
fun.
watched
Watch it. It's worth it.
and
It's
we
still worth
haven't
it.
watched, what's the one about the university? That was Gen V,
That's
right?
it, Gen V.
So are
So
they
the
making
second
another
season is the one
okay.
that's coming out.
So
Yep.
we've gotta watch that. That's on our to
Yeah,
watch
that was
list.
fun.
Yeah.
That was
Now,
definitely fun.
speaking of shows, are you watching Invincible?
Yes. Amazing
Bro.
show.
So
Amazing show.
I have read the book. I was reading the book.
Hmm.
I watched season 1 and I loved it so much I bought the 2 omnibuses of the
Yeah,
series. Now I won't read beyond where the cartoon goes because I don't want to ruin it for myself.
yeah.
Where
That's fair.
season 3 ended, is it
Yeah.
season 2 or season 3? Season 3. Where
Season
season
3,
3 ended, that's where I am in the comic, and now I've put it to the side
And you're
because
like
I
put
don't
it to
want
the
to go
side.
ahead.
Like,
Yep. I don't
I
want
mean,
to ruin
it
it
is
for me.
good. And for those people who are not familiar with that are viewing this, please go watch it. It is that good.
It's
It's
really
so
good.
good.
It's really good. The voice actors are fantastic.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. It's
good stuff.
hard. It's hard for me to like, but not really. When you look at him, it's Glenn. It's Glenn from The Walking Dead, right?
Yeah.
Who's
Yeah.
doing the voice. And when you look at Invincible, it does kind of look like Glenn a little bit.
He
I could see
does.
it.
He
I
does.
could see it. So that's
And then
pretty
you've
good.
got, yeah, I mean, and having J.K. Simmons do Omni-Man's voice, like there's a lot of great
Yeah, that was
voice
great.
actors in there.
So
They're
good.
really, really good. They're really
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. Other nerdy things that came across Karate Kid Legends. What the hell?
I don't know because I never saw that last Jackie Chan Karate Kid movie, so I am
The one
not
that
sure.
the movie that should not be named. That one. Yeah,
I
it's
never
terrible.
saw that one. And I don't know.
It was bad.
Now is Daniel and
So
Johnny
Daniel's
gonna
in
be
this one in Legends, and
so
that's the whole thing. Like they have Jackie Chan's character kind of come to Daniel to help him with this new kid.
yeah.
So
So I watched the first 2 seasons of Cobra Kai.
yeah,
And I loved them. I didn't stop watching it because I didn't like it. I think the first 2 seasons were on YouTube, and then it went somewhere else. I think it's on Netflix, maybe.
they're on Netflix. They're on Netflix.
I just never started watching it again. So it's not that I didn't like it. There's so much other stuff. I never got back into it.
Yeah. It has a very solid. I mean, they always straddle the line between the very silly and over the top, with like the
Yeah.
dramatic and the storytelling. I will say this: the ending of the show is very good.
Yeah.
If you like the characters, then it hits all the nostalgia buttons just right. Even though it gets very, very silly, very silly. But yeah,
Nostalgia can make up for a lot.
yeah, exactly.
It can
And
make
it
up
has
for a
that
lot.
right tone of between like action and humor and a little bit of drama. You know, it strikes a pretty solid balance between those two. So there's that. Let's see what else is. Oh, Ballerina's coming out. Have you checked that
That
out?
I would like to see. That now the John Wick movies, that my
Yeah.
wife and I saw all those in the theater. That was like, we made sure we went to the Dolby Surround, like whatever the Mac Daddy theater
Oh yeah.
was, to
Oh yeah,
see that when
yeah.
those
You
came
gotta
out.
watch that on the big screen with a huge
Yeah,
sound system to truly like experience those because they are action orgies
they really are. They
of
absolutely are.
violence. Just an orgy of violence is what you have there. But the wire work, the stunts, the effects, the all the combat synchronization, and it's amazing. It's amazing how they did that. And I'm a huge fan of Ana de Armas. Honestly,
Yeah.
like I can see her pulling off the action hero thing a little bit more than most of the typical Hollywood actresses.
I'm
What's
not
her name
terribly
though?
familiar with her, but just from the trailers and such that I've seen, I do buy into it.
Yeah, so she was the kind of ingenue agent in, was it Spectre that she's in when they go to Cuba?
I think
I
that
th-
was it.
yeah, she has a small cameo there as like the field agent in Cuba, and she's great in
Right.
it. Like where she looks like you think that she's gonna be completely like useless in a fight, and turns out that she's a
Until she's not.
absolute badass.
Yeah.
So yeah, so
The
she's good. That one looks good.
I just watched, and I had watched a very grainy pirated copy, so I didn't go to the theater to see it, of Captain America Falcon. I just finished watching it on Disney.
Yeah.
That was as bad as,
Brave
as I
New World,
remembered.
the new one.
And here's the
Yeah.
thing, I felt
Nah.
really bad for Anthony Mackie because he's a
Same.
good
He's a great
actor.
actor.
He's a really good
He's
actor, but
good.
some of the dialogue that they wrote, I was just like, these people aren't even trying. They're not
Yeah.
even trying. And some of the fight choreography was just bad. That whoever that actress was, they got a hobbit to play
Yeah.
Sabra, and they wouldn't even say who she was. That's supposed to be Sabra, who is an Israeli super soldier.
Right.
And because they're so scared of pissing off the Palestine people, look, well, I don't
Yeah.
give a crap
Was that
about
what
your.
why they changed
Yeah,
it?
that's exactly what changed it. You can't show Israel in a good light or they'll lose their minds. And it's so funny every time I see a Queers for Palestine t-shirt, I just want to say, you do know that they'll throw you off a building, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say like
It's
you
like it's
won't
like it's
last
like
very long.
it's like chickens for Chick-fil-A or cows for Burger King. None of it makes
Yeah.
sense. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
it
That's
just,
unfortunate.
yeah. And then Red Hulk, they made this big deal of him in the advertisement. He was in the movie for what, 3 minutes, 4 minutes?
Maybe. Yeah. The last
So
five.
you got that, and then they wonder why Thunderbolts, which was a good movie, why
Mhm.
Thunderbolts didn't do well. And it's
Yeah.
because if you poop on enough pizzas, people are going to start taking them. They're going to stop eating them. Like, I don't
Hey,
trust you
it
anymore
yeah.
because you
Did
have
you watch
ruined, you know.
did you watch Born Again? Daredevil Born Again?
I watched through the third or fourth episode. It's not bad, but
It's solid.
it's just
It's one
not
of the
what it was on
better
Netflix.
Disney Marvel
It's
shows,
it's it's
but
it's the best Disney Marvel show that's
yeah,
not Loki.
yeah, exactly. But because of all the other ones that were terrible,
Nobody watched it.
ratings wise, it didn't do anything.
Yep.
It just
I mean,
kind of
you had,
sank.
well, it's because it goes back to what they're doing in Fantastic Four. They're turning it into the MCU. Tony Stark's gone, but look out, here comes Ironheart. Okay,
Yeah,
so we're gonna take a character that failed in the comic book several times,
I was
and we're
gonna
gonna
say
shove it down
repeatedly.
your throat.
Yeah,
Well, it's like what they try to do with Captain Marvel. Here's a character that failed in the comic books, and every time we relaunch it, it fails. We're gonna shove it down your throat. Miss Marvel, same thing. Eternals, same thing.
yeah,
We don't have Hawkeye. Now you got his daughter. You know, you don't have we've got Moon Knight, but guess what? He's not going to be like Mark Spector is in the comic book. He's not going to be a badass mercenary. He's going to be a
Right.
schizo who loses his mind half the time, and the woman's going to save the day. Look, girl power, rah, rah, rah. Look, I like Spice Girls as much as anybody else. But look at the 80s. They did it right. I'm going to take it back to what we talked about earlier. Star Wars. We had
Yeah.
Princess Leia. Look at
Yep.
Andor. Look at the girls in that. You had Mon Mothma. You had the Balin's partner. I can't remember all the names. I'm sorry because I've only watched it once. You had well written.
Hattie.
Yes,
What was her name?
I can't remember her name.
Yeah.
And Bix, you know, you had
Yeah.
really good,
Bix was great.
strong female characters. You had the bad guy. What was her name again? I just forgot it again.
Deidre. Yeah.
Yeah, she was a bad guy, but she wasn't one of those. The way they write female character bad guys now, she was an intimidating badass that was going to get you. And when
For
she
sure.
was on the screen, I was like, oh gosh, what's she going to mess up of ours now? She was a bad guy that I was scared of. Go back to Alien. Look at Ripley. Go
Yeah.
back to Terminator. Look at Sarah Connor. You can do strong female characters without doing it at the expense of the male character.
Right.
Marvel,
Right.
Disney bought Marvel and Disney bought Star Wars for one reason. They owned the princess market. They owned the girls market.
Yeah.
We need boys brands. So we're going to buy the two strongest boys brands on the planet, and we're going to spend the next 10 years trying to turn them into girls brands. And then we're going to wonder why we can't make any money.
Yeah.
That would be
That's
like
the
me
thing.
buying Burger King and turning it into nothing but terrible fish tacos and wondering why I can't make any money.
Yeah. Or into a vegan restaurant. It's like,
Even
it's
better.
not gonna
Even better.
work.
And selling shirts that say
Yeah.
chickens for Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, it's just not gonna work, man. So let's see what
That's why
else.
we can't say nice things.
Yeah, yeah, it certainly is. And the thing is that you don't need to insult the audience. You have to trust the audience. And the other thing is like there's a fine line. So I'll give you an example. One of the things is like you can create characters that are, you know, LGBTQ whatever, and do them in a way that's organic and still tell a story. And do you remember The Stand?
Yeah.
Stephen King's The Stand?
Dude. Yeah, not this new one, not this new one that they did, but the one from the 80s with
I'm talking about like even the book,
the
like
book. Yeah, I read the book when I was in
original.
the 7th grade. Oh yeah.
So I remember distinctly there's a character there, Glenn, who happens to be gay. And the way it's done in the story, he is treated just like every other character.
Right.
And him being gay is just an aspect of his personality. It's not. King did a brilliant thing by making him just like the other characters and treating him just like the other characters. It became that much more organic and real and believable.
It's
And
because
that's where you got to go with those.
it's because everything has become identitarian. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't present myself, hey, I'm Larry. I'm a he, him, and I like banging chicks. That's not how I introduce myself. Those things are all
Yeah.
true. But when you make your personality, when you make the central premise of who you are as a person, when you boil it down to the color of your skin, which set of genitals you like to put in your mouth, or where you go to church, when you make those the center and demand that everyone in the world kowtow to make that the center of their perception of other people,
Do
it's
whatever
not gonna
that
work.
vision is.
It's not going to work. It's not
Yeah.
going to work. It's not.
Rather than having I remember a friend of mine telling me, and I've always pondered about this, like when you make it about group X, whatever group you pick, it doesn't matter, being special or quote unquote, how he said it, more special, you are inevitably excluding others.
Right.
Rather than bringing them together. And that exclusion makes people be resentful or not, you know, because it's like, well, you're kicking me out of the club, so
I don't want to be
why-
I'm not going to be in your club.
right.
And
So
the thing is that yes, there is a history of exclusion, and there's a history of racism and sexism and thisism and thatism.
right.
But the remedy for plague is not more plague.
Yeah.
You know, I can't say don't fight fire with fire, because if a forest fire's out of control, you burn a fire line. Sometimes you do fight fire with fire. but you don't fight exclusion with
Hmm.
exclusion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Otherwise, if you want to fight exclusion with exclusion, then just let the old exclusion stand and go make your own thing.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the thing. Like, ultimately, like, uh, if all you're doing is, well, this group has been marginalized, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that group and make them special and marginalize these other people. You're still marginalizing somebody
And here's
rather
the
than
thing.
let's all kind of get together. And I know it's hard because we're all human and we're imperfect,
We are.
but we got to get past it.
Here's the
Is
thing.
the
Here's the
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, and I've talked about this to my black friends, to my Hispanic friends, to my Muslim friends, to my Jewish friends. We've all had the same conversation. If all you ever did was sit in a room and look at social media, you would think that the world is on fire and everybody hates everybody.
Yeah,
But
for
that's
sure.
not the case, dude. You go into any gym in the country right now. When I lived in Miami, I was the
Mhm.
only white dude in that gym. Their nickname for me was El Tiburon. I was the great white shark.
Tiburón.
I was the only white dude in there. They know, here comes the big gringo. Everybody speaks Spanish around him. He's trying to learn Spanish. That's what they knew about me. And it didn't matter. Like I didn't care. We were people, we were friends. Hey, help me learn your language. Hey, you help me learn yours. It was so funny because there would be, five Cuban dudes in there speaking Spanish to me speaking English to them, and us
Mhm.
going out to eat. Poor server would be so confused because he didn't know which language he was supposed to speak. But in real life, when you get out and you touch grass and you press flesh and you meet real people, the world ain't that bad.
Yeah,
People are good. People largely are good,
that's true.
but there are too many people out there that are creating a social media presence, building businesses, building political careers, and they're building it around the politics of separation. They say, you know what? If I can
Yeah.
drive a wedge and I can get this portion of the population to believe that I'm for them and everyone else is against them, then I ensure my power. And that is a dirty, dirty, dirty game of pool to play, man.
Yeah, yeah,
It
and
really is.
that's a game that serves a few at the expense of the many, unfortunately.
And to me, that's one of the things, and I know we're getting ready to wrap up, so I'm gonna bring it all back around to bodybuilding. That's one of the things that I've always loved about bodybuilding, weightlifting, powerlifting, any of the iron stuff. It didn't matter. When I lived in DC, I would go into gyms, like again, medical sales, I would be all over. And if I was in a part of my territory where I couldn't make it home to train, I had a Golds membership up there, and you could train at any Golds up in like the DC, Maryland, Northern Virginia area. And
Nice.
I would go into some areas up there and I would be the only white dude in the place in a gym full of black dudes. Nobody gave a crap.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cared. It was, dude, that was a good set. Hey, man, can you give me a spot? Bro, are you getting ready for a show? You look great. And that's how it's been in every gym I've ever been in. I've never seen this bull crap that we see on social media because people need to realize social media is not real life. It's two things. Social media is a highlight reel for insecure people, and it is a platform by which to separate and to make money. That's largely what social media is, and it's a shame.
Yeah,
It really is.
yeah. It's very performative.
It
It's
is. It is.
very, very performative.
And the more marginalized you can present yourself, the more intersectional you can be, the higher your social credit score.
Yeah, yeah, and that's unfortunate,
It really is. It's a
because
shame.
we are more alike always as humans than we are
We are
different.
different. Brother, you could not have said it better.
Yeah.
Could
I
not have
mean,
said
I've
it
lived
better.
all over the world and been everywhere. And there are certain patterns you start recognizing and the way humans, so the specifics might change, but the undercurrents are the same of
Yeah.
relationships, of respect and love and getting to know somebody and friendship. They're all the same, they're universal.
I found a couple of things that my mother and father told me to be very true. It takes just as much energy to be nice to someone as it does to be nasty to them. People might not remember what you said, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And if you go out of your way to be kind to someone, they might not be kind to you back, but more often than not, they're at least not going to be mean to you. And if you can do those things, like I can count on one hand the number of humans I've had actual problems with, real problems with in my life. And I've been fortunate, I've been blessed, but I also know that, you know, I don't know what that other person's experience is. Again, I'm not going to bow down and say, oh, because you're this color, you come from this area, you can't succeed. I'm not going to play that game. But I don't know what kind of day you've had. I don't know what you're dealing with. I don't know which one of your relatives just got a cancer diagnosis.
That's right.
You need to treat everybody. Like, I think if you meet a stranger, you treat that person like whatever you say to them is going to determine whether they have hope or not for the day. Right.
That's right.
And it's not that hard to do. It's not hard to smile at somebody and ask how they are and to mean it. It's not a
Yeah.
difficult thing.
Yeah, I mean, like you, like it's, I find it really, really hard to honestly dislike somebody, you know?
Yeah, you
Like
have
it's
to.
really hard. You have to try really, really hard for me to be like, man, this guy's just terrible.
If
Like,
if you do something to hurt my wife or a family member or one of my
right.
friends, I'm going to have a way bigger problem with you than if you hurt me. I can get over it.
Yeah.
But if
Yeah.
an offense toward my wife, that I do not forgive. But man, life is too short. Life's too short. I'd rather have friends.
Yeah.
I'd
Yeah.
rather be normal people.
I always listen to that, whoever it was that said, like, 1 minute of bad interaction, man, don't let that ruin all the hundreds of minutes you have in a day.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that 1 minute can't
I
define
heard
your
something
day
like that.
for
It's
you.
like, yeah, did someone said, man, I've had an awful day. Did you have an awful day? Or did you have
Right.
2 or 3 awful minutes during your day?
Yeah, 2 or 3 awful moments in the day that
Right.
kind of sucked,
Yeah.
but not the whole day.
Yeah.
you know.
I'll go into an office and the two biggest part, in my job, you have to have clinical knowledge. You have to have knowledge of the managed care system. You have to be able to answer questions. But the biggest part of our job is waiting, just
Yeah,
waiting.
being
And
patient.
yeah, and invariably, at least once or twice a day, I'll have a doctor or a staff member say, oh, hey, I am so sorry you had to wait. And I say to them, if a 10-minute wait is the worst part of my day, I'm having a pretty good day. So don't you ever
For sure.
apologize for that, And I think people get wrapped up in little things. I mean, if you can make it home at the end of the day, you got food in your belly, a roof over your head, and your family's
Yeah, man.
healthy, you've had a great day. Yeah.
Living with gratitude is important too. That's another thing. Living with active gratitude and realizing, like you said, those moments. My wife calls these moments like glimmers. The moments, like, how people talk about like the bad moments. Well, she's all about noticing the glimmer, which are the good moments, and making a mental note of that. Like you had a good X, Y, or Z too. You didn't just have a crappy 2 or 3 moments. You also had these cool things happen. Be aware of that, and
Fixate on the good.
changes everything.
Fixate on the good.
All right, man. Well, I know we got to wrap it up. So,
Yeah.
as always, Larry, a pleasure talking to you. We'll do this again because there's plenty of nerdiness and bodybuilding insanity that
Absolutely, dude.
we can dive into.
No,
So,
next time you see me, I'll have the stitches out. I'll be a little darker, a
yeah,
little
man.
leaner. So
Yeah,
things are getting better.
I'm gonna be watching your progression, man, because it's inspiring for sure,
Well, and
for
now that
sure.
I had that 1 week of kind of downtime when this thing was kind of giving me some trouble. Wasn't sure about my ranges of motion, but everything's good now. So I'll be posting on the progress thread on my journal thread there regularly.
Yeah, for sure. And I will say this before we go, for those who maybe didn't catch it or whatever, check any suspicious skin tags, any moles. It can save your life.
Yeah,
Right, Larry?
because I don't think we talked about this
Yeah.
before we recorded.
So,
So about 6 weeks ago, my wife noticed a suspicious mole that came up. So we made an appointment with the dermatologist. He took it off, and it came back as cancer. And he said, for the type of cancer this is, we need to take a pretty big margin. So it's about 14 stitches. I think there are 15 or 16 internally.
yeah.
So you have to take a pretty big area out. Praise God. The labs came back on that. It's completely clean. He got everything. Well, again, yeah, it's a great day.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
I got
It
a
is.
cool scar. I got a cool story to tell, and I'm alive. What can ask for
Absolutely. And
more?
that's the thing, guys. You got to take care of yourselves as best we
Yeah.
can and of each other.
Don't sleep on that stuff. If you see anything, you see asymmetrical moles, if you see something that if you even just think for a second it doesn't look right, go to your dermatologist.
For sure.
An
It'll take them
hour.
all of like 20
5
minutes to go
minutes.
over you.
No, no
Yeah.
time at all. I mean, in our world, in the bodybuilding world, Chris Aceto almost died because of skin cancer
Oh, wow.
15,
I did
20
not
years
know
ago.
that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, in the larger world, most people don't know Bob Marley. Bob
Yeah.
Marley died
Yeah.
because of skin cancer. He had a little spot underneath his toenail, and it was cancerous. And when it's cancerous, they have to take a margin to make sure they get all the cancerous tissue. Well, because of where it was, they would have had to amputate the toe, and he wouldn't let them. And about 6 years, it was either 3 or 6 years later, he went for follow up, and it had metastasized, and it had eaten him up, and he was dead less than 3 or 4 months later. So died at 36 because
Yeah, because
he
of
ignored the
something
skin
that was
cancer.
eminently preventable.
Could
You know,
have
I
been
mean, losing a toe
prevented.
sucks, but
Losing your
compared
life's
to
much
losing your
worse.
life,
Can't compare
yeah,
them. Can't
absolutely.
compare them.
All
All
right,
right, my
man.
brother. Have a good night.
You too. Have a great evening. To everyone watching, hope you enjoyed it, and we'll come back soon with even more fun stuff. And have a great evening.
Good night.
All right.
All right, brother.